I want you to imagine a scenario that, well, it's probably all too familiar. It is the middle of July. You know, the kind of oppressive heat that just radiates off the pavement and makes the air look wavy.
Oh yeah, the absolute worst time for things to break.
Right. And of course, your air conditioning suddenly dies. So you make the panicked phone call, you wait around sweating, and finally a service van pulls up to your driveway.
And you are just hoping whoever steps out of that van actually knows what they're doing.
Exactly. But have you ever actually stopped to wonder, who exactly is stepping out of that van?
It is a really profound question. I mean, because we tend to just see the uniform, we see the clipboard, the tool belt, and we just naturally assume a baseline level of identical expertise.
Right, like they're all just clones of the same master technician.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the reality of the trade is entirely different. You might be getting a seasoned veteran, or you might be getting someone who was legally not allowed to touch a wire just 3 weeks ago.
Which is wild. And that is the mission of our deep dive today. We are going to explore the hidden 5-rung career ladder of an HVAC technician.
It's a fascinating progression.
It really is. By the end of this conversation, you are going to understand exactly what it takes to climb from a sweaty apprentice all the way up to a master technician. You will learn what it literally costs these workers out of their own pockets and, maybe most importantly for you as a homeowner, the massive corporate shift happening right under our noses.
And to do this, we're grounding our discussion in a really detailed account from Dave Hartzell. He's a master HVAC technician based in Kingfisher, Oklahoma.
Dave has the ultimate perspective here, right? Because he has a 45-year career arc. He didn't just parachute into management with a business degree.
No, not at all. He started out back in 1981 as an 18-year-old making $4.50 an hour just pulling sheet metal in 105-degree attics.
Wow. And today, he owns Hartzell's Heat and Air. So he has lived every single rung of this ladder. Okay, let's unpack this. To understand the people fixing our homes, we have to start where the heavy lifting happens. The absolute bottom rung.
Right, so the industry calls this level 1, the helper. This is where every single master technician has to begin.
Your ground floor.
Literally, it is the foundation, and it's defined by raw, literal, physical labor. In Oklahoma today, a helper is making somewhere between $14 to $18 an hour.
So that translates to, what, about $560 to $720 a week?
Give or take, yeah. And they're earning every single penny of that in pure sweat equity.
I was reading through Dave's account of what a helper actually does, and it sounds almost militaristic in its boundaries. Like they are very restricted.
Oh, the boundaries are incredibly strict, mostly for safety and liability. You know, a helper carries the equipment, they fetch parts from the truck, they run the shop vac to clean up.
Glamorous work.
Right. Their primary job is just to learn by watching. They are strictly forbidden from touching the pressurized refrigerant, and they absolutely cannot touch any high-voltage wiring unsupervised.
So they certainly do not size systems or perform diagnostics yet.
Not a chance. Which means their tool investment at this stage is basically just the essentials to, well, not get hurt and to be mildly useful.
We're talking maybe $150 total here, like a basic Klein 11-in-1 screwdriver, which is just a standard hand tool with interchangeable bits, a flashlight, gloves, and boots. That's it.
Yeah, because at level 1, the tool isn't a wrench or a digital gauge.
Yeah.
The tool is the willingness to endure extreme conditions while maintaining observation.
Dave actually shared a very specific memory from his own time as a helper, right? Back in 1981.
He did. He was riding shotgun with a lead tech in West Oklahoma City. It's July. They were pulling a 3-ton condenser, which, if you don't know, is a massive heavy metal box out of a customer's flower bed.
Just brutal heat.
Oh, yeah. The lead tech is on the manifold gauges, doing the complex mathematical work. And Dave is just standing there in the blistering heat, holding a heavy recovery jug and learning to keep his mouth shut.
Just absorbing it all through osmosis. But, I mean, human endurance has a limit. Eventually, you watch enough, you lug enough heavy equipment, and you want to actually start turning the wrenches.
Absolutely.
So how does a helper transition into someone who is actually allowed to fix a broken machine?
Well, that transition brings us to level 2, the apprentice. This is where the training wheels loosen, but they certainly do not come off entirely.
And the pay bumps up a bit, right?
Slightly, yeah, to between $19 and $24 an hour. So now the apprentice is looking at maybe $760 to $960 a week.
And their daily reality changes drastically. The apprentice can actually run easy service calls all by themselves now.
Right. We're talking about the low-stakes maintenance work.
Yep.
Changing air filters, clearing out clogged condensate drain lines, or maybe swapping out a blown capacitor.
Let's actually pause on that because swapping a capacitor seems to be the bread and butter of an apprentice's summer. What actually is that?
Think of a capacitor like a massive coiled-up spring or a dedicated battery. The air conditioning motor requires a massive jolt of energy just to start spinning from a dead stop.
Like way more energy than your standard electrical panel can just supply instantly.
Exactly. The capacitor stores that energy and delivers the kick. But in 100-degree heat, those capacitors overheat, they swell up like a balloon, and they fail.
And an apprentice can spot that bulging silver cylinder, discharge it safely so they don't get electrocuted, and wire in a new one.
Which is huge for the customer.
Yeah.
Dave gave this great example of one of his apprentices last summer. They drive out to a farmhouse on a no-cool call, find a swollen 45 microfarad capacitor, and swap it out in 12 minutes flat.
Boom. Bill the customer, get the AC running again. But there is a massive catch to this newfound independence, isn't there?
Oh, a huge one. If the apprentice encounters an issue that isn't glaringly obvious, like if they need to do actual diagnostics, they still need supervision over the phone from a senior tech.
Because they don't yet have the pattern recognition for complex failures.
Right. And they also hit a massive financial milestone here. To do this job, that $150 tool pouch turns into a $1,200 investment out of their own pocket.
$1,200 for someone making $20 an hour. I mean, to put that in perspective, that's like a kitchen prep cook who's just been given permission to chop the vegetables, suddenly being told they have to buy a $1,200 set of professional Japanese chef's knives just to keep their job.
It's a huge burden. The required gear gets serious very quickly. They need a Fieldpiece SE260 multimeter, which is about $180.
And that isn't just a fancy calculator, right?
No, it is what they use to safely read high voltage and ensure they don't get a lethal shock. Plus, they need a Yellow Jacket manifold for $350 to read internal refrigerant pressures, a Robinair vacuum pump for $400, a torch kit.
Just a crazy amount of gear. And on top of the physical tools, they must hold an EPA Section 608 universal certification. Why does the EPA care about my residential air conditioning?
Well, because the refrigerants moving through those pipes, things like Puron, are heavily regulated greenhouse gases.
Oh, right, the ozone layer.
Exactly. If a technician just vents those gases into the atmosphere instead of safely capturing them, it does real damage. So the EPA mandates a $150 test to ensure they know the environmental protocols.
Wait, an apprentice is out there running calls alone, but they still need supervision over the phone? Does that mean the listener is essentially paying full price for a technician in training?
This raises an important question about how the trades actually function and how consumers evaluate competency. The short answer is yes, you are paying the standard service call rate.
That feels a little frustrating for the homeowner, honestly.
I get that. But you are also paying for the safety net of the master technician who is on the other end of that phone line, guiding the apprentice. This is the traditional apprenticeship model.
So they have to balance the risk.
Exactly. The industry has to balance the risk of letting a less experienced person touch expensive equipment with the absolute necessity of hands-on real-world learning. If apprentices weren't out there running those 12-minute capacitor swaps, the master techs would be bogged down with simple fixes.
And you would be waiting 2 weeks for someone to restore your air conditioning during a heat wave. Okay, that makes sense. So the apprentice is out there swapping the obvious broken parts. But what happens when the capacitor is fine, the filter is clean, the power is on, and the house is still 90 degrees?
Well, that's where the apprentice hits a brick wall, and it's where we cross the threshold into true diagnostics. The industry refers to this next tier as level 3, the mechanic.
So at level 3, the technician is running their own service truck entirely autonomously, and the pay jumps to $26 to $32 an hour.
Yeah, that's over $1,000 to nearly $1,300 a week, plus heavy summer overtime. As Dave puts it, that is solid middle-class money.
But the work gets infinitely harder. They aren't just swapping swollen parts anymore. They're diagnosing what Dave calls the ugly stuff.
The really ugly stuff. Intermittent thermostat ghosts. Mixed up wire colors left behind by a previous terrible installation. Or, crucially, knowing the subtle difference between a system that has a low refrigerant charge versus a system that has a restricted metering device.
I love that you brought that up because to a layman like me, both of those problems just look like an air conditioner that isn't blowing cold air. How does a mechanic even tell the difference?
Think of it like trying to figure out why your garden hose isn't spraying water. Is the water pressure from the city fundamentally low, or is the pressure fine, but there is a tiny pebble jammed inside the spray nozzle restricting the flow?
Oh, that's a great way to visualize it.
Right. To figure that out in an air conditioner, a level 3 mechanic isn't just feeling a copper pipe to see if it's cold. They are reading precise superheat and subcooling metrics.
Using digital sensors and a lot of math.
Exactly. They measure exactly how much heat the refrigerant gas is absorbing from the house and exactly how much it is releasing outside. They adjust the system strictly based on the numbers, not by feel.
And when they repair those systems, they are doing things like pulling a deep vacuum down to 500 microns. Which honestly sounds like science fiction to me. What does that actually mean?
Okay, so when a mechanic opens up the copper pipes of an AC system to fix a leak, outside air gets inside. And outside air contains humidity.
Water.
Yes. If you leave moisture inside those pipes and seal it back up, that water mixes with the refrigerant oil and turns into acid. It will literally eat the system from the inside out over time.
Oh, wow. So they have to get every drop out.
Exactly. So pulling a vacuum means they attach a heavy-duty pump that lowers the pressure inside those copper pipes so dramatically that any microscopic water droplets actually boil into vapor at room temperature.
That is wild.
Yeah. The pump sucks out the vapor until the internal pressure is 500 microns, which is near absolute zero pressure.
Which means their tool bag has to evolve yet again to handle that level of scientific precision. And this blew my mind when I read it. The leap in personal financial risk is just staggering here.
Oh, it really is.
That $1,200 apprentice bag, forget it. The mechanic's truck now holds $4,000 to $6,000 in personal tools.
Because to do that kind of precision work, the basic analog gauges go straight out the window. They upgrade to a Fieldpiece SMAN 460 wireless manifold, which is $800 just on its own.
Just to translate internal pipe pressure directly into digital temperatures.
Right. They need a JB Industries 2-stage vacuum pump for $700 to pull that 500 micron vacuum. They buy Testo temperature probes, high-end Vito Pro POC tool bags, electronic leak detectors, nitrogen rigs.
They are driving around with a small, used car's worth of highly calibrated scientific equipment, just to make sure your living room stays at 72 degrees.
It's a massive investment.
And eventually, a mechanic reaches the ceiling of fixing broken things, and they move into the business of installing brand new things. Which brings us to level 4, the lead tech.
The lead tech is the crucial pivot point in the industry. They run the entire installation crew. They don't just patch up old machines. They are responsible for putting in completely new systems.
So they supervise the helpers and the apprentices on the job site.
Yes, and they interact directly with the homeowner, and they sign off on the final commissioning of the equipment. They are fundamentally the face of the company on a $15,000 installation day.
But what shocked me was the preparation required before the equipment even goes in. Dave mentions that lead techs read manual J-load calculations. What exactly is that?
A manual J-load calculation is sort of like a tailor measuring you for a bespoke suit, but for your house's climate control. You can't just guess the size of an air conditioner.
Why not? Just put a big one in, right?
Well, if a technician slaps a massive, oversized AC unit on your house, it drops the temperature so fast that it shuts off before it can pull the humidity out of the air. You are left with a cold, clammy house that feels like a cave.
Oh, gross. And if it's too small?
If the unit is too small, it just runs 24 hours a day and burns out the motor trying to keep up.
So the manual J software fixes that.
Right. It forces the tech to calculate the exact cubic volume of every room, the insulation rating of the walls, and even map out which windows face west and get hammered by the afternoon sun. All of that math dictates the exact equipment size.
Because they are managing that level of complexity and bringing in massive revenue, the pay structure completely shifts at level 4. Straight time is $34 to $42 an hour, but Dave notes that many lead techs actually get paid on a percentage of the job.
Usually 8 to 10% of the total install ticket.
Yeah, Dave shared a specific example of his own lead tech running a massive $22,000 Climate Master geothermal swap outside a town called Hennessy. It took 3 days of intense work, tapping into the Earth's core temperature for cooling.
Geothermal is no joke.
No. And that lead tech walked away with an $1,800 check just for that one single job.
Which brings up the credentialing required for those massive jobs. At this level, getting a NATE certification, which stands for North American Technician Excellence, is highly recommended.
That tests real-world working knowledge.
Yeah, it's a $200 test.
Yeah.
And if they are doing geothermal, like that big job in Hennessy, they might also get an IGHHPA accreditation, which requires $1,500 and a full week of training on underground loop systems.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Getting that NATE certification is highly recommended, but Dave points out that 90% of technicians in America do not have it. 90%.
It is a voluntary industry standard, unfortunately, not a federal law.
If 90% of techs don't have the certification, how are they allowed to be the face of a $15,000 installation? It sounds like buying a luxury car from someone who doesn't have a driver's license. You are trusting them to completely rewire and replumb the lungs of your house.
Your analogy is spot on. It really highlights the fragmented, heavily unregulated reality of field installations. HVAC is largely regulated at the local and state level for the business owner who is pulling the city permit.
But not the guy in the attic.
Right. The individual person with the wrench inside your specific attic often doesn't need a standardized national diagnostic license. The entire system relies heavily on the integrity of the local company training them.
And this exact dynamic, this highly profitable, localized, slightly chaotic industry generating $15,000 to $22,000 a pop is what caught the attention of Wall Street.
Because that revenue represents recurring, high-margin cash flow. Air conditioners always break, eventually.
They always do.
And nothing catches the attention of private equity faster than high-margin cash flow in a fragmented, localized market.
So around 2018, the HVAC world started shifting fundamentally. Private equity firms, companies with names like Apex Service Partners, Service Logic, and Redwood Services looked at the map of America and realized that HVAC contractors were the perfect targets to roll up into massive corporate portfolios.
Which completely changed what it means to reach the absolute top of the ladder. Level 5. The master HVAC.
Yeah, the traditional path to level 5 is steeped in grit. To become a master in a state like Oklahoma, you need 12,000 documented hours working under another master.
That is years of your life.
And then you have to pass a brutal state exam covering the intricate physics of the refrigeration cycle, ductwork sizing, gas piping regulations, and complex electrical codes.
You have to carry the license with the State Construction Industries Board. That license is what allows you to legally pull permits, sign off on code-compliant installs, and actually own the company.
And the tools at level 5 completely change too. You aren't defined by your wrench anymore. Your real instruments are a laptop running that RightSoft Manual J software, an Energy Star quality installation checklist, and maintaining an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau.
Right, you become a business owner.
And the pay. It's whatever the business produces. As Dave says, the deal you sign when you reach the top is that you eat last. Some weeks, you might clear $3,000. Other weeks, you might make $0 because you just had to make payroll for 4 technicians and cover a massive parts supplier bill.
So contrast that traditional high-risk path with the new corporate playbook. Private equity firms recognize that these independent, aging owners had built up incredibly loyal local customer bases over decades.
So they developed an aggressive acquisition strategy.
Exactly. They walk into a town, find a master tech who's been destroying his knees in attics for 30 years, and they offer him a 7-figure cash payout plus an earn-out bonus.
Yeah.
They buy the company.
Then they paint all the trucks the exact same color, they raise the prices to the customer by roughly 30%, and they run the entire dispatching business through a centralized out-of-state call center.
The scale of this consolidation is staggering. Apex alone bought up over 130 contractors between 2019 and 2024.
130.
Yeah, and the source material points to the cautionary tale of Sealbeck, a highly respected family-run HVAC operation that Lennox bought for $300 million. And it happens at the manufacturing level, too. Goodman went to Dakin for $3.7 billion, Trane to Ingersoll Rand.
The wild part is that the homeowner usually has no idea this even happened. They think they are calling the exact same local family business they've used for a decade. But instead of talking to the owner's spouse at the local office, they are routed to a call center in Texas who dispatches an independent contractor who has never been to their neighborhood before.
And then they get a bill that is 30% higher.
But let me push back on this for a second, because we can't just paint Wall Street as the villain here. If a private equity firm is offering 7 figures in cash, and the master tech has been crawling in 105-degree attics for 40 years, Why on earth wouldn't they take the money and run? Isn't Dave the exception to the rule here?
What's fascinating here is the deep tension between a pure financial exit strategy and the pride of lifelong craftsmanship. From a business standpoint, you are absolutely right to push back. The private equity offer is life-changing money for someone whose body is just worn out from decades of hard labor.
Totally understandable.
And let's be fair to the private equity model here. It exists because it solves real logistical problems. A centralized corporate call center with standardized training across multiple states and massive bulk purchasing power can be incredibly efficient.
Right.
If you are baking in a 100-degree heat wave, a massive corporate fleet might be able to dispatch your technician to your house in 2 hours, whereas a local independent guy might be booked out for 2 solid weeks.
That makes perfect sense. The corporate scale provides reliability and speed.
It does. But it often alters the relationship with the homeowner because it changes the primary incentive. When the owner no longer lives in the town where the work is being done, the incentive subtly shifts from maintaining a 20-year relationship with his family to maximizing the profit margin of this single service call.
That's a huge distinction.
Dave represents a breed of craftsmen who view their business name as a literal extension of their personal integrity. Because he stayed independent, when you call his number, it goes directly to him or a technician he personally trained. You can't easily buy that kind of local accountability out.
So what does this all mean? It means the next time it's July, your house feels like an absolute oven, and that service van pulls into your driveway, you are now equipped to see far beyond the uniform.
You really are.
To look for whether that technician is pulling out a $150 canvas couch or a $6,000 diagnostic tool bag. You know the technical mechanisms at play. To ask if they hold a NATE certification. And most importantly, to ask whether the company they work for is actually the local independent shop you thought you called or a private equity roll-up operating under a familiar name.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it leaves us with a critical dilemma regarding the future of the skilled trades.
What's that?
Well, if the ultimate reward for reaching level 5 is increasingly just a multi-million-dollar buyout from Wall Street, and we acknowledge that massive corporate call centers often prioritize swift turnover and high margins rather than slow, methodical training, what happens to the pipeline of 18-year-old helpers?
Oh, yeah.
If the local masters cash out and retire to a beach somewhere, who's left to patiently pass down those mandatory 12,000 hours of true, hands-on mentorship required to keep our homes livable in the future?